All right, all right. Welcome to the last day, everybody. Whew, crazy. Um, I hope that you have learned a lot. And if you have not, I will help you to learn more, even after this class. So just always reach out to me if you have a question. Um, this was kind of the sort of first go at this with this particular class. So we definitely got a couple of things out of the way, hence the discount. We didn't want you to uh, basically, it's good that you all came and you participated and helped me to figure out what works best. And I think we did pretty good. And I hope you feel the same. At the moment, what I'll do is I'm just gonna pause the recording, just so I can help people with certain things. Such as setting up their display still if like something's wrong. Jennifer had a question about that. I know that all of the other participants, students, you were all set in that department. So I'll pause the video here so I can help Jennifer, um, and then I'll hop back in, and yeah, we'll go about our class as usual. So the video might be a little bit shorter, but that's just because I'm helping people um, without boring or disturbing the other students. So I just want to make sure that everything's fair for everybody. So I don't want to waste people's time. But I also want to give the maximum amount of help I can to everybody. So I'm just gonna pause recording and then I'll hop back in and we'll do our lecture. Okie dokie. So we had an issue with M1 Max. This is just a note for everybody. M1 Max do not support uh, the Looking Glass Unity plugin. It does support the plugin for obviously for Windows. But yeah, the Unity plugin does not like M1 Max, but it does actually support Intel Max. So if you have an Intel Mac, you're fine. If you have an M1, you're not fine. Just keep that in mind. If you're buying a new Mac, all right. Unfortunately. So what are we doing today? Well, essentially, we are just going to. Well, what was supposed to happen was we were going to go over everyone's work that they did, and I am going to check to see if I got any new submissions on the assignments, just so we can. And if so, then go ahead and take a peek at it. Good there. Nice. Okay. Me just replying to Beverly and company to see if some of our solutions work for them. Okay, that's good. And most recent is 6 days. So yeah, definitely nothing submitted. I know that Beverly is done with theirs. It's just that I'm still waiting on getting the file itself, and that's totally fine. So what we'll do is we'll just go to our modules and we'll kind of skip the review slash critique for now. I still would love to see those, so if you do want to email them to me or submit them in some way, uh, as described, I would be more than thrilled to see what you're doing and what you're up to as far as the assignment, and then hopefully provide some feedback as well. So I did write like a little poem just for the heck of it. brief review is on the agenda. I don't know if we have to do this again, to be entirely honest, since it's recorded in the last session. And this applies to both of these. I think we can actually skip the animation part. What I'd like to do is go over lighting a bit more, and other things with post processing. Like making. I know we did go over a little bit of lighting, but I wanna go ahead and just expand on that a little bit, and show you some best practices for lighting because in many cases we have a habit of just kind of putting lights in and assuming, oh, they'll work, and then if our app gets too big, that we're creating, or interaction that we're creating is such a large file, then what happens is you end up with things not loading properly and the FPS drops substantially, frames per second. And you want to avoid that. Just going to open up our session here, minimize the hub, make sure that I have bridge on and not HoloPlay service. All right, good. All right. We'll just wait for that to load. After the lighting stuff, I wanted to have a little help session, but I kind of got that out of the way. Um, Trying to assist with Jennifer's issue, and then we ended up finding out that, oh, it's the M1 Mac issue. And then I want to talk about how would a curated show, and I was hoping for this to be a little bit more participatory, but that's all right. I'll just kind of talk, and Jennifer, obviously, once we get to it, you can chime in as well. But yeah, we can talk a little bit about that. I've had some ideas in regards to an actual art exhibit utilizing looking glass displays. Obviously, I'd love to have larger ones, but very expensive, so it's not gonna happen. And I'll just go. I'm gonna go ahead and myself visible. There we are. Beautiful. Nice. And I'll turn my recorders off. Let's see what do I have for. Got all that's good. Okay. Nice. All right. Let's hone in on that a little bit. Press F on the keyboard if you ever get lost from your wherever your scene is. I'm also going to get rid of this start button that's on my display when I toggle. So toggle that. Okay. Just gonna restart bridge. Okay. There we are. It seems that each time I open this guy up, I always have to fix this camera to some extent. Why? Okay. Very strange. Alright. There we are. So, yeah, let's talk about lighting a little bit more. I know we touched on it a bit where we had the reflection, reflected light and all that. And this does assist with that sort of, adding of depth and clarity. And I actually think we went over it quite extensively. Uh, so perhaps a review of interaction may be in order more than anything else. But just a quick note about lighting. So, just as a review, we have 3 points of light, right? And this is typically how you would want to sort of stage a scene, at least at the bare minimum. You want some kind of light in the back, a little bit on the side here and here as well. So like a triangle of light, right? And your object would be in between. Obviously, one may be more intense than the other, but this helps with kind of definition, clarity, and obviously when it comes to adding more volume, this helps a lot as well. So those 3 points, that's pretty much all I really need to go over. And then you can adjust the range of your light. So moving this light so that it's smaller, larger, etc. Keep it around there. You can adjust the intensity, obviously, right? Make it real intense and not so intense. Hard shadows will assist with optimization. So if you want to optimize a bit more, you can always select hard shadows. It's not going to be as nice, obviously, not going to be as cascading, if you will, uh, meaning blending out, right, from the harsher dark shadow to a sort of feathered out soft edge of a shadow, right? That's what I mean by cascading. And you can see the difference in person much better. But that is that. Now, you'll notice that there are different modes. I know I went over this slightly. There's real time, which means it's going to calculate the light in real time without actually sort of baking light into the objects and thus optimizing your work even more. So, one thing you want to ensure is that you should be thinking about, you know, what can be static in your scene. Is there something that can be static? And if you do find something that's static, how can we adjust it so that it's only baked, thus creating more optimization? Because remember, and the reason why I'm talking about this is because the Looking Glass display, it's capturing 48 views, right? Every frame is 48 views, as you know, on a quilt. Thus, it takes a lot of power. So the more you can bake light in to a static object, the better. And this applies to all game making, right? But it especially applies to VR, any sort of XR, AR even, and the Looking Glass display when it comes to producing content for the Looking Glass display. How do we bake something properly? Well, the one thing you'll want to do is, real time. Obviously, is what we have for our spotlight here. That's just going to be whatever it's going to be in the sort of moment. And actually, have to press play in game time, etc. Right, and you can see the light changing on the object. Mixed lighting is very similar. So if we went to a mixed lighting scenario, then in that case, it would look very similar, but it'd be a little bit more optimized, and it would just bake the shadows versus also baking the light, right? Now let's say that we do have an object that is static, and we'll just put it in here as let's just put a sphere in here. I will press R on the keyboard for scaling, and I'll scale that up a bit. I'll also give it a little bit of color just so that I can, which means I have to give it a material here. Yeah, why not? I'll give it this material. This is just the cursor to the Looking Glass 3D cursor. I'll bring that sphere forward. I'll put it in the zero parallax view just so we can see it a little bit better. I'll actually plop it right in front here above Bunny Bug's face. Make it a little smaller. Okay. Put it up here. All right. So in this case, I don't want the ball to move. The ball's not going anywhere. So what do? If I want to bake light onto this ball, I have to first make it a static object. So in this case, here's our ball. I'm going to make that static. Again, this applies to other things, not just the Looking Glass display. So, this is a technique that game creators, game designers, and the like, they all use this technique to optimize their games. They also use something called LOD, which is, to describe in a very simple way, let's imagine you have a camera strapped to your head, and instead of capturing everything in front of you're basically clipping it at a certain point, so that it doesn't render. So it's very much like a clipping plane, kind of like how the HoloPlay capture is using far and near clipping plane, except it's not really clipping. It's just choosing not to render certain things. So LOD it can still render things afar, so it's not clipping it. However, it will clip or not render things of your choosing, which is very convenient. So if you are, and also it can replace assets that are maybe lower in resolution, right? So based on distance. So if you're farther away from it, it would be less resolute. If you're closer to it, it'll be more high def, more resolute, right? That's the key takeaway of LOD optimization. I did this, for example, I did this in my holocomic with the flowers in the title screen. Now, it isn't it isn't really necessary in that particular scene to have that, but I did find it to assist in some way because there were some flowers that were populating outside of what could be seen. So it worked well for me, and it's mainly used for for moving objects if you're moving through space, and the camera's attached to your character, of course. It's mainly used on the camera and is associated with the actual character's position and distance from said object of your desire that you want to be lower resolution. Uh, like Breath of the Wild uses this a lot. If you play Breath of the Wild, or if you plan on doing it, pay attention to the resolution that occurs with the background. You'll see that it gets swapped out in a very, very clean and smooth way. You probably won't even notice it. Distant objects or mountains become almost two dimensional, uh, very low res, right? But like Sfumato, that is a perfect example of Sfumato, right? Like it's literally that all that stuff also becomes a little bit less saturated, a little bit less, you know, less resolute, and we can actually find examples of this. So, Breath of the Wild, LOD example. I'm just yeah. Yeah, here we go. So, and I'll just go through this here with it. There we go. So here we are. You can see the characters getting a little bit closer, right? Very low LOD, low LOD, normal LOD, high LOD, ultra, extreme. Closer, closer, closer. Very slowly getting closer to said object, which is this rock. Um, you'll even notice that the tree has more detail now, right? The grass has more detail now, and the like. So this is what I'm talking about. You can I mean, look at that. Resolution just gets worse and worse the farther away you are from something, right? But it's not that it's like looking ugly. It's just simplified, right? And one could argue that it's not even resolution that's actually like perhaps I'm not using the right word there. So the it's more or less like, okay, how can we as the artists, the 3D creators, the texture artists, the environment artists, optimize this to the best level possible, right? So, and I'm gonna go over some things here. So, what you can tell from this is proximity actually has nothing to do with these images in many ways. Um, at least uh, not in the way they're presented here. So this is basically a setting that they have set that is making everything run uh, with very simple materials and textures. Like you can see the sort of tiles that are used. There's like no alpha on the grass, like so it's just like square green, right? Uh, so it works in multiple ways. So you have this sort of setting where it would, obviously give you perhaps better performance or something, which it really isn't here. Um, Instead of this, what I want you to look at is instead of this foreground stuff right here, look at how and or if things change in the background. So yes, obviously extreme or ultra is extreme is probably gonna be your optimal, right? That's what you want. A nice balance of ultra and like high definition. But look at this mountain right here. Right? There's this little plateau. So you have plateau here, plateau there, plateau there. These aren't changing in the way that they look, but everything up front here is changing and becoming more detailed, right? That stuff is by distance. So that works. And that is what I've been talking about. As far as like the LOD here, this is because they have it set also in the near plane. So that's what's making it a little bit confusing. So if we ignore these two here, we can get a better picture of what I'm talking about, which is the far LOD clipping of less detail in the back, more detail in the front. So that's all I was saying there. Very good technique to optimize things. I definitely recommend it. I used it in various ways, and yes, that is that's a sfumato technique technically because you're doing less detail in the back. So when it comes to baking and optimizing in conjunction with LOD and all that, baking your light is as simple as making your object static. And remember, it has to be static. Like it has to be standing still. It can't be like going off and uh, moving within an animation, excuse me, or anything like that. It has to be static. So we'll keep it as such. And then we'll get a light. We'll go to assets. Excuse me, we'll go to game object. Always get those confused. We'll get perhaps an area light. I like area lights. These are especially good, and they only really can be baked. So that's why I'm going to use that. You can bake any light, but I just want to use this one. So we'll use the area light here. Bring that over. And I'm using it because we haven't touched this one yet. So I'll just go ahead and shift that to the side. You'll see and notice that, well, there is nothing happening, right? There's no light on this ball. We can change that. We'll just move it over a little bit to here. Keep in mind, you can also make your lights bigger by adjusting these elements on the side. This is pointing in a direction that I don't really want, so I'm just going to raise it up so that it's pointing at the ball a bit better. And I'll probably move it over a little bit, back a little bit. Good. Up. This is just me being picky. Okay, cool. We have it in place. We have a sort of width and height that we desire. I'm going to go ahead and give it a little bit of color here. I think I do want it to be kind of like a purple, just to mimic at least a little bit this cooler orange and cooler blue here. Right? Keep it within the same palette of tone and color. I want it to cast shadows. I want it to just have an automatic render mode. It doesn't need to be more important than any other light. It can just be what it is. This is nice though, because sometimes lights will get cut off. They'll cut each other off because of a level of importance that they may or may not have. And it causes issues where lights are not emanating any light because something is rendering in a sort of more important state. Something is set to important, right? Now, if it's auto, it could still shift to important or not important. Why does it do this? It does this so that the game can keep running without dropping frames. Sometimes we have a very overloaded scene, and our operating system that we're running our apps on, just like when a game is skipping, right? Uh, it's dropping frames so that it can still function as an application, essentially. And obviously, that's not good. So the way to avoid that is to make sure that the lights that you really, really want are more prominent in intensity and such, and also make sure that your polygon count, your face count of the objects you've made, like this here. Notice how ridiculous this is. This is actually way too many. I used a more elaborate model for our example. This is a model that you wouldn't want in your game because it's or your app because it's unless it's just one scene. Like this is one scene and maybe there's one interaction, right? And that's why I chose to use it. It's not going to break anything, but it is a lot. It's a lot of polygons. You want to try to avoid that. A lot of faces there. And when I say faces, I mean these little triangles here that make up the object itself, or a topographical object. Topology. The ball is static. The light is in place. As far as intensity goes, not sure what it is yet because I haven't baked it. Well, how do you bake light? That's the question. And one way to do that is to go down here. Often it's good to have some kind of light setting here. So we can do a new light setting and give it a name. All I did was click this button here. And then this populated here, to which I will give it a name. And I'll call it Bake Example. Within those light settings or bake example settings, you can do a sort of auto generate of the lighting. And what that's going to do is, I don't know if you can see it on here. Be able to just kind of manipulate this window a little bit. You'll see this like this bar that was here that was computing the global illumination. And what happened was I didn't really get too much in regards to the light being baked on. If I did, I didn't really notice it. So I am going to up the intensity. It's going to auto generate now. And now I can see a difference. So it's loading, and boom, we have a very well lit ball that is baked. And when I move it, it's generating a new sort of item here, meaning a new global illumination, and you'll see that this changed here, and that's because it loaded up a new setting or a new look for that static object because I moved it. And if I do it again, you'll see this changed, right? This changed there, and there you go. So good way to optimize, and usually I keep auto generate off because it can be taxing on the system as you're working. And then, perhaps I'll bring this over here, right? And notice how the light isn't changing, nothing's updating, right? The only light that's changing on here is the light that is given from other lights on the sphere. But that one shadow is literally baked onto the object. So now if I press generate, the shadow should change and bake into a different sort of state. There we go. Looks different now. Good. And that works. Those are the basics of baking. Very good optimization tool. I want you to be aware of that, especially for the looking glass display. If you have any more questions on it, feel free to email me. I'll do my best to get back to you on that. All right. Good, good, good. I like. Very nice. Very nice. Down. And moving forward here. One thing that would be really great to do is to just make sure that you're good on interactions. I know that I went over it quite thoroughly in our last video. So I'd like you all to message me if you have any problems with interactions. Are they working? Are they not working? Send me images of compile errors, or and those would be found in the console right here. As you can see, I have one error here, but that's just because of the state change of the game view. Game view being this panel here, right? And yeah, and you can, if they don't clear, then they're bad, right? If they clear, it's fine. It's just a temporary warning or something else, right? Just be aware of that. You can always press clear to see how damning the errors are. If they don't go away, then you have to try and fix it because it won't play here and it won't build when you build. And when it comes to building, remember to add your open scene before you build. You can build in multiple ways. You can target separate platforms. In one case, I have a Mac OS platform, right? So if I wanted to do that, I could. I can also do a different one where it's just WebGL driven. Fine. And then the Universal Windows platform, which is for sort of lower end, but good systems that can handle that. I've actually made things in Unity for a Universal Windows platform on a very tiny computer about this big, and it worked flawlessly. So definitely all about that. Not so sure if it would work for display, looking glass display stuff, but at least not with regard to interaction or anything extensive. In our lecture today, it goes over some of the 12 principles of animation. But this is more supplemental. Obviously, this isn't an animation class, right? But I love the Illusion of Life. I think they do a great job with sort of trying to give you a sense of what each principle is about, right? And if you play it, you can kind of get a better understanding of this.
The following has been paraphrased from The Illusion of Life by Frank Thomas and Ollie Johnston. Squash and stretch. This action gives the illusion of weight and volume to a character as it moves. Anticipation. Prepares the audience for a major action the character is about to perform. Each major action is preceded with specific moves that anticipate for the audience what is about to happen. Staging. It's the presentation of an idea so that it is clear. Straight ahead and pose to pose. Pose to pose is charted with key drawings done at intervals throughout the scene. Straight ahead animation starts at the first drawing and works drawing to the end of a scene. Follow through and overlapping. When the main body of the character stops, all other parts continue to catch up to the main mass. Nothing stops all at once. Slow in and slow out. As the action starts, we have more drawings near the starting pose, one or two in the middle, and more drawings near the next pose.
Now, a lot of this is, and obviously you can finish that on your own. A lot of this is all about how to make things more organic. And in our case, with the Look Glass display, if we have interactions, I just think it's very important to animate properly so that things aren't too jarring, and you can maintain that flow state that we talked about last session. This video helps a lot with that. Obviously, just kind of defining what these principles are, but in addition, it's something you can use for your interactions to prevent that jarring effect. Um, and if you do get into animation further, you'll understand these concepts even more because you're going to have to sort of, make layers and different things in Photoshop or Adobe Animate for your sprites and different frames for those sprites so that they do animate in the animation component. Not gonna get too stuck on that. I do want to go ahead and take a look at these slides so that we can sort of digest some polish type things. So in session 6 here, the polish, I want you to simply polish up your work, make it nice. Uh, and reviewing content that I've already made obviously will be important. I've kind of already done the review prior to the slides, so I'm not going to worry too much about it. We've gone over a very quick review of the animation best practices for sort of maintaining the flow state, so to speak, and those 12 principles, especially the stretch and squash, which I went over last class fairly thoroughly, I think. Um, and if I didn't, which I know I did, but if for some reason I'm just imagining I did, feel free to to let me know. But I do remember holding the my little squishy ball here and going over all of that with you. And post process review. Remember to that post processing is important. It's something that is really going to have a major impact on what the look of your stuff, the look of your creation, the bloom value, the depth, the ambient occlusion, right? Ambient occlusion is when it's like darkening areas in the scene that are really not exposed to any ambient light, and it's like a permanent fix of darkness to that segment, like a wrinkle in the skin or the depths of a crevasse on a mountain, right? Um, it's gonna be dark as heck, and that just can be baked. You don't have to, which is basically what ambient occlusion does. It's almost like a pre-bake, right? It's like putting those dark values onto the texture itself because you're not going to have light touch it. So why not just keep it darker? It finds those things on the mesh being your object the 3D object you're putting in the scene, and it just wraps itself around it, figures out where those crevasses are, and then goes and darkens. Many, many, many things to play with, and remember, you can also adjust items in the Unity scene itself on holoplay capture. You don't have to go into post process layer if for some reason you want to just adjust the field of view, the depth, etc. But with that said, it is indeed good to go and play with these because there are hollow play or looking glass capture specific elements within the component being post process volume. I believe in the slides I said post process layer. That's a mistake. I'm gonna go back and fix that. So all of this is very good to just keep in mind because you will need to be aware of it as you move forward and you're making your work better. There are different things within this that I'm just, and I suppose this isn't really review, it's more of an addition to what you've already learned. I'm going to expand on this so you can see it better. I'll drop this down and I'll go ahead and I'll put my pretty face in there again. Why not? If it's pretty, I don't know. Within ambient occlusion, there are different modes. So the modes herein are, for the most part, fairly explanatory. So if you have ambient occlusion method and you want to use it, multi-scale volumetric obscurance is your higher quality, but also faster. option. For desktop and console platforms, it does require a shader support, and our project has that, so don't worry about that. Kind of comes with the Unity registered package. If you went to scalable, it's a bit different. So if we did that, it's going to compute a little bit differently, um, so that it's more specific to scale, of more like one thing versus multiple, right? It's less global, if you will. And ambient only, which is an option that isn't really visible here. Oh, here it is. Yeah. This isn't going to work for us because we're not using HDR, so you can just uncheck that. There's no point in having that run. Depth of field, obviously, the intensity of the depth. So, it allows aperture values that are specific to the code within the plugin core of HoloPlay Capture. So, definitely want that on for maximum depth and proper parallax usage and proper parallax representation. HoloPlay intensity is just kind of defining the depth of field effect that's driven by the capture plugin. And I typically will keep my max blur size at large unless I really need things to be crisp. And then I'll probably drop to medium. But I never really go to small. Within the layer, I do want anti-aliasing. So let's change that. Stop non-propagation isn't actually completely necessary, especially for us. It's great for smaller scenes. So for this example, I think it's perfectly fine if you wanted to use that. It does have sort of a computing tax on the system if you have a fairly large scene or a scene with a lot of moving parts. So keeping it off isn't exactly a bad thing. So we'll uncheck that for optimization. Always have some kind of anti-aliasing. And one thing that I didn't go over thoroughly was this anti-aliasing. And typically what I will use, depending on how refined I want my scene to be, I'll go for something like temporal anti-aliasing if the scene is small. You could even do morphological as well, and we can go over the difference of those at some point if you'd like. But there is a difference, and let's take a look at that. So if we do fast, you'll see some difference in the quality of how these edges are being represented. Notice how the light is actually a little bit better as well on subpixel and temporal. Very subtle difference, but it is there. And we'll see it better if we have this open here. So let's do that. So fast, temporal, very subtle. I mean, you can't even really see it. But the great thing about this is that you can adjust motion blending, jitter speed, and jitter speed is important. And you know why it's important? It's important because, and it's actually a little bit too much right now. I can see it jiggling. There's a jiggle jitter. It's important because this actually has an effect on that time step stuff that we talked about. So if you adjust jitter spread as while also going back to fixed time step, go to player settings. So file, build settings, player settings, time, fixed time step, and I have my time set at 0.0167. That is a good speed for what I'm trying to do. And in conjunction, I will drop my jitter speed down to probably zero point 0.5 so it's not too jittery, right? If I go up, it'll jitter even more. 0.5 is pretty good. So we'll just keep it there. And there you have it. Save our work. So using or experimenting with what works for your scene in this regard is definitely key to not only preventing sort of like a motion sickness to users, but also eye strain and all that. Keep yourself aware of how you can, you know, affect the user physiologically, and one of the reasons that I go over this is because it's that physiological aspect of a looking glass can be pretty important. Obviously the tech has gotten a lot better. It's not like the old generation of looking glass displays where they actually will really make your eyes dry and not feel great. um, but that's just a part that was a part of it growing, and fortunately my eyes have gotten better since I started using the Looking Glass display. I have no idea what that's about, but perhaps I should do a research paper on that with a doctor or something. But I thought that was fascinating. It's been a couple of years, and my eyesight keeps getting better. But it's been 4 years. Wow. 5 years. Wow, 5 years. Yeah. Holy cow. Been using the Looking Glass for 5 years. Not bad. Not bad. All right. So we've gone over backlighting. We've gone over some anti-aliasing essentials. Worst comes to worst, and you don't know what to pick. Pick fast approximate anti-aliasing. Keep alpha. Fast mode. Done. Right. You'll also see that in the post process volume here, you have options for fast mode of the bloom. Right. I actually want to give it some bloom, so let's go ahead and just take a look at make sure that you're taking a look at the display itself, and I'm just going to increase this intensity. As you can see, there's a big amount of bloom, and this is just light that kind of falls off the edges of objects. And we've already gone over that, so I'm not going to keep harping on that one. But I love bloom values. You can really define a sort of era of time. Comparing CRT TV to plasma TV or CRT to LCD screen, right? The like. Softening also helps in this regard. Threshold. Experiment with these settings. They're all different. There's a lot of definitions for them, and you can access all of the definitions in Unity documentation. Pairing with all that and continuing on what I was saying is that we reviewed animation in a very small sort of way. We also reviewed some post process topics we had already covered, but I also gave you some best practices for anti aliasing as well as baked lighting for optimization and best practice with the Looking Glass display, all of which kind of ties into, especially that LOD system that I was talking about. How do you go about LODs is another thing, and usually they're coded in, and that can be, you know, that can be annoying. For C sharp creators, but you can also get LOD specific assets in the Unity Asset Store. And if you wanted to really get into sort of hodgepodge of things, if you go to the Unity Asset Store with your Unity login, you can find assets right on there as well. So you're not limited to mine. You can go in here and Unity Asset Store. You'll find it here. And you can get free stuff or purchase stuff. So LOD system. ultimate LOD system. This is actually a perfect representation of what I was talking about in regards to, where the camera is distanced. So this is a nice LOD system that is pre-coded for you that you can utilize and optimize your projects. Free 3D. Let's do that. With the free 3D, basic motions from characters, modular 3D kits for an environment, free trees if you need some trees in your life, and little animals. Why not? Lots of goodies. You download it, right? So let's say I wanted this animated thing here. I'd have to sign in first. Sign in, and you could then download it. Whoops. After downloading it, you would add it to your assets, and then you would go into Unity, go to Assets. You would go, actually, you would go to Package Manager, Package Manager. Because you've purchased it from a certain site or what have you. So this is Window, Package Manager. These will populate, and what you'll have to do is go get out of this window here, which says Packages Unity Registry. And then you want to go into My Assets. And it's going to fetch your packages that you've either purchased. I don't have a lot because I make a lot of my own stuff, so this is all that I have. My Assets in that drop down. And then you would find what you've downloaded. You would download it. And then this icon switches to import. And you would press import after it's downloaded, import. And you'll get a box that shows you all the things that they're going to import. Basically, it asks you, is this okay? Do you want to uncheck any of the things you don't want? Usually I do, just to save space. And then I import. And that's how you would get an asset into the scene. That's from the Unity store. And there are many, many options in there. Go have fun, play, look at what's available to you in their store, and go from there. But that's going to bring your project to the next level. And there's absolutely no shame in using some free stuff once in a while to kind of like give it an extra edge. But I do love originality, and I wanted you all to really experiment and find, and make some original things to the best of your ability. I think that's an important part of the process, especially if you're customizing for more depth and for this particular plugin in Unity, a particular display as well, of course, right? That's that. And so how would we display this? If we were to go into a gallery, let's see if anybody has actually exhibited this, right? Okay. And here, we have somebody who's seems to have exaggerated some things, but yeah, that's comes out at you. uh, yeah, so that's a sort of way to exhibit. You just like make your work, you put it in the looking glass, and there you go. But this isn't really what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is looking glass display art exhibit, and there should be one if I remember correctly. Somebody did make a very interesting piece. I don't know if I'll ever find it, but where they had things sort of placed into their work. And I can't find it here, but that's all right. And essentially, it would be, at least in my own opinion, I think that the best way to sort of get an idea of what to do with the display, I would first put it in a space and see if that space works in correlation to other displays. And if I'm going to have other displays, I would question, are they communicating with each other in some way? How can I make them communicate? How does the idea of space change from the display to the space that the actual media or art media, meaning like the paintbrush or the brushstroke or the sculpture that the display is placed within? How does it talk to that space? How is that space being interacted with? How is color balanced? Right, because a screen and a painting have one is self-illuminating, the other is not. Right. I mean, there are perhaps you're using glow in the dark paint, right? And the whole gallery space is dark with glow in the dark paint, but that may not be what you want, right? So it's a matter of finding a balance of how are we playing with space, in what way can we play with both forms of space. One having a sort of spatial temporal existence in itself as just an art piece, but then you have this object within that art piece that's displaying something that is not, uh, from its beginning, is not. It wasn't made technically in a spatial temporal existence, but rather it projects what was made into our spatial temporal existence. What does that say? What does that do to the space and to the user interaction, right? And to the concept of the overall piece. All of these things are personally important to me, but they may not be to you. And perhaps you want to just do something like I did recently with the Hollow comic and make a story of sorts, an interactive visual novel, Hollow comic, as I call it, or a movie. Right? There are plenty of ways to branch out and talk about, film through the Looking Glass display. So if we look at depth capture and nerfing, nerfing is a sort of new idea that NVIDIA is really going hard with. Hard meaning they're really digging into how to make a 2D thing more 3D, while using a sort of neural sort of network. Let me pull that up. Luma AI captures stuff in a very nice way, almost like photogrammetry, but not. Right? It is. It's basically like lidar, but very advanced lidar. Um, you need 3D, you go to them. So really quite fantastic as far as
Uh,
applying, just kind of getting a sort of 3D object into the computer and then into the looking glass display. This is a very, very easy photorealistic way to generate this stuff. Game art, buildings, monuments, sculpture, right? All of this can be done. And the beauty of Luma is that you don't need, it doesn't need to be done in the daytime either, right? You can do it at nighttime. And this is just how the technology works. Not too bad. And so you can capture film as well with some kind of different plugins for that. Uh, Meaning you probably don't even in our case here, we don't even really need to worry about that because Luma AI takes care of a lot of the sort of depth field issues that we may come across frame by frame. Uh, Sometimes previous iterations of this sort of filmed version of creating a 3D film, if that makes sense. All of this was done prior, but with multiple cameras, right? So we've done it. We've done 360 stuff, and with Looking Glass, we've done it as well. But Luma AI makes it so much easier, so that we can actually fulfill these depth fields a lot easier. Get it on the iOS app, and video to 3D API, Imagine 3D. There's so many ways to capture your 3D video or images. Check it out. It's one other option for us to play with. And that is that. I pretty much went over this with you already. Again, if you have questions, please reach out. I know this was a short ending, but honestly, I had a fantastic time with all of you, and I look forward to diving in even more with others. Again, I thank you for your time, and again, if you need something, please reach out. And have a great day. Jennifer, I will talk to you later. Thank you for joining in. I see some chat stuff. Oh, yeah, my camera was blocking the Luma website. Let's move it over. I'm gonna go ahead and I'll put this link in the chat. Um, but yeah, this stuff is cool. I mean, look at this. This is somebody who basically turned this into a like 3D scan. You can see like this whole scene as a scan. That's what's crazy about it. And you can do it via video as well. So it's insane. Very, very good stuff. Please play with this. Apologies for my head in the way previously. But it's amazing. So the future is here. Go play with it. And yes, we shall talk soon. Enjoy the day. Enjoy the weekend. Jennifer, any questions before I head out?
uh, I was gonna say, is it possible that I can get the Luma AI web link in Rizuku?
Yeah, I'll pop it in. What I'll do is I'll pop that link into our little chat right here, and we'll go from there. All right.
Okay, and for your course on Rizuku, how long is it gonna be on there for,
Oh,
so to speak?
you have access for an entire year, so
Entire year.
yeah,
Okay.
yep,
Okay.
yeah.
Um,
That's a good question. I don't know if a lot of people knew that. So anybody who is listening later, yeah, you can access for an entire year, which is lovely.
Okay. And just one last thing, I guess.
Hmm.
If there is any update from the Unity plugin for Looking Glass Factory for the M1 chip,
Hmm.
is there a way you can update me on that?
Oh yeah, I could update you on it, or you can join their Discord. And actually, this is a good thing for everybody. Let me pop
Mhm.
that up. I don't know. I mean, I have a lot of special access on their Discord as far as like role stuff, but it's just because of beta stuff. It's not like a crazy special access. Just because I have beta stuff that I do for them once in a while. But yeah, you go on here, Looking Glass, and they have a lovely community of people. Everybody's very kind and supportive. So if you have an issue, you can always reach out to them. I'm going to show you where to find their link right there. Pretty much on every page of the Looking Glass site, you can just click that and you're good to go. Hop onto Discord, and you'll be able to get the support you need or anything from them. And they will announce the M1 stuff. You can also, if you wanted to, I'm sure it's already been done, but if you have feature requests, you can pop those in as well, right? That's
Okay.
good. And that feature request would be the M1 compatibility. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. So with the Looking Glass Discord chat, both Looking Glass staff and clients can go on and hang out and chat
Oh
about
yeah. Yep.
Looking Glass. Oh wow.
Yeah, it's
Cool.
great. So they have like a few dedicated people, like about two dedicated people who kind of run the Discord for the most part. Two or three people, yeah.
Oh, cool. That's
Oh,
awesome.
oh yeah.
Yeah, I might
Very good.
join it once, we get off, this Zoom thing.
What's that?
I was saying I might join the Looking Glass Discord as soon as we get off Zoom.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I know. I think you should. That'd be great. Get in
Yeah.
there and talk to some people, showcase some work that you're doing. That way you can get some, if you need feedback on something, you can always get feedback.
Hmm.
Basically, any sort of troubleshooting usually goes in the support chat. You can just go into Unity or Unreal, whatever app that you're having problems with.
Mm.
Yep.
Okay.
All right.
Um, Well, it was so nice to have classes with you, really. And I hope you host like another Looking Glass class soon.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna try to. I have to. I gotta because I'm starting at the semester at Rochester Institute of Technology. I have to dedicate myself to that for until I figure out. Obviously, I will be having another one of these classes, but I don't know if it's going to be soon or later. So I have to figure that out.
Okay.
Yeah, but other than that, I mean, thank you for your best wishes, and I'm glad that you had a good time, regardless of the issues you were having.
Yeah, because I find once that M1 update is available, I can apply everything out that was taught here.
Oh
So,
yeah, yeah, and yeah,
yeah.
you have that access for a long time, which is great. And
Right.
a lot of it is a matter of just kind of reviewing what we did and going from there. And
Yeah, and
pretty much step by step, I would say.
exactly. And what I'd be curious to apply is like video content
Yeah.
where I think you can insert a video into like the background of a scene
Oh
kind of
yeah,
thing.
that'd be great.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. Layering that would be fantastic. I'd love to see that. Yeah, you should definitely try that out. Be good.
definitely, So,
All right. Well, have a good one, and we shall talk soon. Hopefully, we'll. If I don't hear from you, through another class, I'm sure I'll hear from you in some other way. So we will stay in touch.
all right.
Enjoy the day, and we'll see you later.
Yes. Best of luck to you.
All right. You too. Bye bye.
All right. Bye.